Hello, English learners. Welcome to Social English. My name is Simi. In this lesson, we'll be talking about the present simple tense, how to use it, when to use it, as well as common mistakes you need to look out for when using the present simple tense. So let's start. There are three major ways to use the present simple tense. The first one is to talk about general truth or fact. What do I mean by that? General truth is something that is always true. And when we talk about fact, it could be about the weather, it could be about the sun, it could be about science. The first example says, I speak 3 languages. This is a truth about me. It's a fact about me. I speak English, I speak Russian, and I speak Yoruba, which is my native language. The second sentence says, the sun rises in the east. This is a fact about the sun. The sun rises in the east. Another way to use the present simple tense is to talk about permanent situation, things that don't change. For example, they don't drink coffee. These people don't like coffee, so they never or they don't drink it. Another example here says, John lives in Canada. This is a permanent situation for John. He lives in Canada. He's been living in Canada for at least a long period of time. Another way to use the present simple tense is to talk about routine and schedule. Routine is something we do every day. And when we talk about schedule, this is something we do at the same time every week, every year, every month, at a specific time, basically. Here, the first sentence says, I wash my face every morning. This is a routine, and that's how I start my day. So this is going to be a routine. The second sentence says, the bus leaves at 8 a.m. This is a schedule for the bus. What time does the bus leave? At 8 a.m., maybe every day, every evening, every week. It's simply a schedule. Let's look at some of the structures of the present simple tense. The first sentence, speak, is a base verb of the present simple tense. What is base verb? It means verbs that we do not change to past or future. For example, I speak. The sun rises. They don't. Don't is a negative form in the present simple tense. Leaves is a base form when we use the present simple tense. I wash. Wash is a verb. It is the base verb when we use the present simple tense as well. And finally, leaves. This is also a base form of the verb using the present simple tense. Moving on. Now let's look at how to make sentences using the present simple tense. There are 2 patterns. We have the positive sentence and the negative sentence. The positive sentence simply says the sentence is true. For example, I speak in English or I play football. It means the sentence is true. However, when we use a negative sentence, it means the sentence isn't true. For example, I don't play football. It means I don't do this. So this sentence is false or it's negative. So first, let's focus on how to make a positive sentence, right? When making a positive sentence or a negative sentence, there are 2 ways to approach the sentence using the subject. You need to think of the subject you need to use. Are you talking about a boy, a girl, or a thing? Or are you talking about a group of people? Or you're talking about yourself, which is I, plus the base verb. What do I mean by the base verb? We could also call this the infinitive verb, which means the verb remains the same. We don't change it or we don't add anything to it. So, for instance, it becomes I play, you play, we play, and they play. Plus your noun and plus your time and so many more. You can continue the sentence like that, but I'll come to that later. Now, another way to approach a positive sentence is by using he, she, it. There is a little change to the spelling or there is a little change to the base verb. When we're using he, she, or it, we use the base verb, but we add something to it. So in this case, it becomes he plays. She watches. It flies. So when making a positive sentence with he, she, or it, we simply add s, es, or ies to the ending of the base verb. And we have a rule for this. How do we know if we're adding s, es, or ies? Well, I have written down some of the rules here and I'm going to explain. So in a situation whereby we have a base verb, a normal base verb, all we do is to add s to the verb. So in this case, play is a normal verb. For example, play, jump, swim. This is a normal verb. We just add s to it. So he plays, she plays. Another rule is to add es to the base verb ending in ss, ch, sh, x, or z. And here I have written the verb that ends with ch, which is here, right? And it says we need to add es. So in this case, I added es to the verb watch. So it becomes watches. She watches. He watches. It watches, if that's possible. Then the other rule we have here is to remove y. Add ies when the base verb ends with the consonant y. So in this case, let's say the verb fly, right? When we're using it with the subject he, she, or it, we need to remove the consonant y and add ies to the verb. So it becomes it flies, she flies, he flies. In English, we also have something called the irregular verb. This is when we have a verb and we need to change the form depending on the subject we use. But in this case, if we want to use go, we can say I go, you go, or we do, or they do. But when we want to use he, she, or it again, we need to change the verb. It needs to become the irregular verb. He goes, she does, it has. Don't worry about this. It can be a little challenging, but the more you start to use the present simple tense, the more you start to remember what sort of ending to add to it. Do we add s, do we add es, or ies? With more practice, this gets better. Moving on. Now we understand how to make a positive sentence. We understand the spelling rules, why we use s, es, and ies. Moving on to making a negative sentence. When making a negative sentence, we use something called the helping verb. The helping verb basically tells us that this sentence we're about to make is negative or is not true. So when we're using the subject I, you, we, they, we use the helping verb do not or don't. Do not is the longer way to say don't. So for example, you can say I don't like pizza or I do not like pizza. It's the same thing. When using he, she, or it as the subject, we use the helping verb called does not or doesn't. Remember, it's the same. When we say she doesn't like pizza or she doesn't play football, it's the same thing as she does not play football. I would like to say that when making a negative sentence, please, we do not change the base form of the verb. The base verb remains the same. We do not change it. So for example, he doesn't play football. They don't watch soccer or something like that. Here I have written down the structure on how to form or how to make your sentence. So let's look at the positive sentence. When making a positive sentence, the first thing you need to think of is the subject. Do you want to use I, you, we, they, he, or she? So in this case, for the sake of this video, we're going to use the subject she, because remember, in the present simple, the most important part is this part when we use he, she, and it. So for the sake of this video, we're going to use she. So the first thing you need is your subject. So we're using the subject she. So she, followed by the base verb. We need to use the base verb. Because it's she, remember, we add s, es, or ies to the end of the verb. So we're using plays. So she plays, followed by your noun. Your noun could be a place or a thing. So she plays football. If you want, you may also continue the sentence with time. Is it she plays football on Sundays, on Monday, every week, every year? It doesn't matter. But for the sake of this video, because this is a basic sentence, we're going to stop here. So she plays football. Let's try to change this positive sentence into a negative sentence. So when making a negative sentence, the first structure is to use the subject. So the subject here is she. So she, followed by the helping verb. So the helping verb, because it's she, we use does not or doesn't. So she doesn't, followed by the base verb, which is she doesn't play. Remember, when making a negative sentence, we do not add s, es, or ies to the base verb. The base verb remains the same. We're going to stop the sentence here. If you want, you may continue with the time, or you may say, she doesn't play football every day. She doesn't play football every week. But for the sake of this video, again, we're going to stop it right here. Now, let's practice making a positive and a negative sentence. Whenever you see the word not with the cross sign, it means negative form. And whenever you see the tick sign here, it means the sentence is going to be positive sentence. Number one says, they pizza. This sentence is a negative form. Whenever we use they in a sentence, let's go back to the rule. So in a sentence, we have they, but in a negative form. We use don't or do not. So in this case, it's going to be they don't. What's the verb? Like. Remember, the verb remains the same. We do not change it. So they don't like pizza. That's the verb. The second sentence says, we dash the rules. This is a positive sentence. When we use we in a positive sentence, the base verb remains the same. We do not add s, es, or ies to the verb. So we, the verb says understand. In this case, the sentence becomes, we understand. We understand the rules. Going on to the next one. The subject here says it, and this is a positive sentence. Remember, here we have the verb fly. So when we use the verb it, we change the base verb. We add es, ies, or es to the verb. So it becomes it flies fast. Moving on. Here we have the subject John. In this case, we need to look. John, is it he or she? John is he because it's a boy. This sentence is a negative sentence. So when we use he, we use the negative form doesn't or does not. So in this case, John does not or doesn't. The verb is like. Remember, we don't change the verb. So John doesn't like fish. This sentence is a negative sentence. And the subject here is she. So let's go back to the rules. She, in a negative sentence, we use doesn't or does not. The verb says go. Remember, in this case, we don't add es or ies again to the verb. So she doesn't go to the gym. The verb here is travel. So it becomes, I travel every summer. What is summer? It's a period of the year when it is sunny. Let's practice how to make questions. There are two types of questions. We have the yes and no question, and we have questions that need specific answer. So when we want to make short questions like yes or no question, we use this structure here, the do or does. We use do plus the subject, I, you, we, they, plus the base verb and extra information. However, we use does. So does he, does she, does it, plus base verb and additional information. Remember, this is a yes or no question. Does he like sushi? Yes, he does, or no, he doesn't. Talking about the second type of question we have the WH questions: what, when, why, what, and so many more. So when we want to use a WH question, we use WH question like what plus does with IUE they plus the base verb. And when we want to use he or she with WH question, we use WH question plus does, plus the subject he, she, or it, plus base verb and extra information. When we're using the base verb in the question form, we do not add SES or IES. So for example, do you like? Or does she like? Not does she likes. No, we don't add SES or IES. The same thing goes for when we use the WH question with he, she, or it. We do not use SES or IES. Let's practice. The first question says, you listen to music. The subject here is you. So we need to go back to the rule. When we have the subject, you, we, or they, we use do. So in this case, it becomes, do you listen to music? Yes, I do, or no, I don't. Moving on. Does like to draw animals. So when we use does, we need to go back to the rule again. Do we use he, she, or it? So in this case, you can choose. Maybe you want to use he, you want to use she, or you want to use it. So for the sake of this video, let's use he. So does he like to draw animals? Moving on to the next question, which is a WH question. The question here is when, and we use the subject we. So we need to go back to the WH question section. When we use we, what is the question? So we use do. So when do we need a verb. So here we have the verb open. Do we add SES or IES? No, we do not. We use the base verb the way it is. So open. The question becomes, when do we open the shop? It's a question. And this question needs a specific answer. Maybe at 8 a.m., at 7 p.m., we open the shop at 8 a.m., we open the shop at 7 p.m., we open the shop on weekends, whatever the answer may be. Finally, we have the WH question, why? So in this case, we have the verb play. So when we use why with the subject he, we need to go back to our rule again and check. When we use the subject he, we use the question does. So when does he? What is the verb here? The verb is play. So we say, when does he play? Remember, we don't add anything to the base verb. So when does he play computer game? This question needs a specific answer. He plays computer game at 7 p.m. or at weekends or every Mondays. We've come to the end of this video. If you did find this video helpful, please feel free to give it a like, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and follow Social English on Instagram to learn more daily phrases and expressions. And don't forget, try making some sentences in the comments below. Goodbye!